in one of your recent videos, you talked about like what conservatives need to do. You mentioned something called fake conservatism or performative conservatism. Do you think this thrives more because of social media in a sense, or do you think it's just easier to pretend you're for the cause and not addressing the root problems?
I think it probably thrives more with social media because, you know, I don't even use Facebook anymore because it made me a danger to myself just reading what these people were saying. And that's actually the biggest lesson I've learned in this whole journey. I always thought that the biggest headaches I would get would be from people on the left, but it's actually people on the right who are just stupid. And yeah, because, you know, Ron DeSantis, who I like, will do something and he'll sign a bill that is supposed to like do this or that. And then they see the headline, you know, DeSantis takes on big tech, and they're all like, yay, that means that we're not going to have this problem anymore. But then you like read the bill and it's actually like basically inconsequential, but people are still like, you know, in this echo chamber, and they think that they're winning and that we're dunking on liberals left and right. We're taking back the culture, but we're not. We're losers, and we haven't had a significant victory in the last 70 years, at least, in terms of at least what's lasted. So yeah, it's very performative, and they just want lobbying contracts. And that's why I have to be careful when I say this, but I think it's true. Extremism, which connotes violence, which it shouldn't. Extremism, I think, just means that like you are at the extreme of the distribution. Like if you look at like, you know, where the bell curve of American politics, there's going to be people who are like farther right, and they're going to be on the extremes of that. So they are extremists or whatever. That doesn't mean that they're like, you know, violent or whatever. It just means that they're a little bit more entrenched in their beliefs than the average person would be. But I think that extremism and passion and conviction all kind of go together. I think it's all kind of like one-to-one. And that's what I've noticed when I watch some of these more performative conservatives who don't do anything, is like you look in their eyes and they don't there's nothing there. They don't actually like care about what they're doing. They have no soul and like no conviction and passion for anything that they're doing. And that's, I think, why they're ineffective. Maybe that was like beaten out of them. Maybe they were like demoralized, but yeah. And it's like me, when I'm not sick, I tend to be pretty high energy, and I also tend to be pretty extreme in my beliefs, but not in like a bad way. It's just, I don't know. But I think that
you're fired up. Yeah, exactly. You give a shit.
And I think that's what's necessary to actually do something. But so many conservatives are brainwashed literally through propaganda campaigns of approved conservative rhetoric and talking points, which exist because the left knows that they're not a threat to the system. That's why, frankly, some of these people, you look at who are the biggest engagements on Facebook.com or YouTube even, like, do you really think that big tech would allow for those types of voices to be so prominent if they were really posing a threat to the system? No, of course not. But where's I going with that? Threat to the system.
What is it, like controlled opposition? Okay.
It's like, I'll say something and I'll say, you know, we need to do this and we need to do this. We should be doing this. Well, but John, that's what the left does. Like you said, well, we don't want to stoop to their level. It's like, why do you think they win? Like their idea of a real, you know, conservative movement with teeth that can beat the left is essentially the idea of live and let live taken to the extreme. Like, oh, well, if we could just return to a libertarian society, it's like, okay, that can't exist because the people who are trying to crush you don't want that to happen. They want to win. You want to stop playing the game. That's not how power works. That's not how politics works. Everybody virtually at every point in history understood this until like 50 years ago, including our founding fathers. So yeah, that's.
So in a sense, like, we don't want to generalize, but it's like, if we were going to generalize, would you say like libertarians generally don't confront reality because they kind of just live in this?
100%. It's a completely idealistic ideology. It assumes the perfectibility of the individual. Like, and those arguments, they sound so good, just like the arguments for socialism sound so good, but you think about it within the context of human nature and you're like, that's not how that works. Like, you know, and Ron Paul, who I really like, he had a line in one of the debates in, I think, 2012, where he said, well, we don't need murder to be illegal. The reason I don't kill somebody isn't because it's illegal. It's because I know it's not the right thing to do. And everyone's like, that's so true. I personally am responsible enough to not murder people. So that must mean the whole society doesn't need the anti-murder law. And it's like, that's not how that works. People are flawed. They are selfish. They are predisposed towards chaos, and you need to have order in society in order to actually have freedom. And Edmund Burke wrote about that in one of the founding, I guess, texts of modern conservatism, Reflections on the Revolution in France. And he pointed that out. You have to have order if you're going to have freedom, because if you don't have order, then you're going to have chaos.
So do you think we ever really could, by we, I mean, do you think conservatives or Republicans and libertarians could ever meet in the middle for a common purpose?
No, they, frankly, and I understand it and I sympathize with them because I myself was a libertarian. But I'm getting to a point where I'm more than willing to tread on them, so to speak. Like I will shut them out of the conversation in terms of, not like I'm gonna kick them off big tech or something, but like I'm not even willing to entertain ideas that I know are just so stupid in conversation when we're dealing with such a accelerated timeline like we are now. I don't think that we have time to really debate. Well, I don't know. Maybe we should end, government contracts for roads and give it back to the private sector.
Focusing on anarchy or
they're
something.
Trying to teach kindergartners about anal sex. Like, can we please?
Right. This is happening right now. Yeah.
So I think what's probably going to happen is either we're going to lose and the country is going to look something like maybe South Africa with what's going on right now in about 20 years, or a bunch of young men are basically going to realize that their birthright is being stolen from them and they have nothing to lose. They're going to get really mad about it. And then we're probably going to have some form of like authoritarian right-wing government, which doesn't mean, by the way, fascism. And it doesn't mean totalitarianism. It basically just means conservatism with balls. Literally the same thing that we had in the first half of the 20th century, where if you were a communist, you would not be able to get a job in education or in media, any place with influence. Like,
wow,
that's good.
Why like the opposite of now?
That's literally good. And you see how they flipped the table completely. Because there was a time in this country where if you were a communist, you couldn't get hired and you would be blacklisted from society. And then what did they say? Well, we just want free speech, right? We just want free speech. And then the American thought, okay, we'll give you a little bit of free speech. And then look what happened. They infiltrated the institutions and now you can't get a job. And now you are getting canceled. So we kind of have this nostalgia for like, oh, old America, when everyone was unified. Do you know why we were unified? Do you know why everything was peaceful and prosperous? Because we put communists in jail, okay? That is a good thing. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Not jail. Not jail. Just don't let them work in academia. Not jail.
And most people have no problem with gays getting married, but lots of people, I would say most people have problems with the idea that their kid could be taking puberty blockers without parental consent, which is like fucking crazy.